Is anybody on the phone listening?
Here?
Ms. Holchi? No, nobody's here?
Wait a minute. No, not on the phone.
First, congratulations,
Thank you, Ralph.
Councilman Doran. Welcome. And Mayor, I want to thank you for getting back to me with my hysterical texts about traffic and the closing of the roads. You got back to me immediately. Thank you. However, I still maintain that Route 5 should be open at least until 8:30, considering they do not begin work until almost 9 o'clock. And it really, when I'm trying to go to work and I see, you know, the young lady sitting there reading her paper and drinking her coffee and the road is closed and I can't go there, and it would save me a half hour at least, minimum, trying to get to work. It really upsets me greatly. And thank you for getting back to me. Mr. Farnsworth did. He told me to ask out questions ahead of time and I would have an answer, but he never did. So, thank you. I have just a few questions with this discussion about the controller's report. First, I want to say that this really should not have been any new news to this mayor and council, considering Mary Hogan has come before the council, and in fact, when Mayor Merce was the mayor, had stood before this mayor and council and said, you have a problem, there's a problem with the assessments, there's something wrong. She said it not once, not twice, she said it every council meeting. And nobody took her serious because she, you know, doesn't run, isn't part of the Democratic Association or the Democratic Club, so it was just dismissed. Also, we came before you and talked about the double billing problem that we were having with certain people who worked for the borough. That was ignored, so we had to go to the state, and the controller had to put out another report. We've come here repeatedly talking about land use issues, and that's also ignored. And it's really a shame because, you know, you have members of the public, taxpaying members of the public, who come here and stand here and in good conscience try to be good citizens and try to have a dialogue, and it's really been time and time again ignored. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, but at the last councilman meeting, former councilman, I can say that now, Henwood said, well, you know, his suggestion is if, you know, that during his you know, when he was running for council, that it was very positive, and what his experience has been is a certain core group attend the council meetings consistently, and some of the information is valid, some is hearsay, some is without merit. I have yet to see or hear, since I've been involved, and I've attended every council meeting almost since 1999, and that includes the Board of Adjustment meetings and various planning board meetings, and I've not heard any member of the public come here and talk about an issue that's affecting the borough and basically state mistruths or hearsay. Everything is based in fact. In fact, one only has to go on the internet and look at all the old newspaper articles, the Record, the View, and these stories are, you know, it's not just us. We just happen to come here and face you who are saying these things. I mean, in fact, the View did an editorial a few months ago saying it's time you guys listen to the public. You know, consider us your little canary in the coal mine. There's something wrong here. And to sit here and say, you know, 400 and something thousand, almost 500 and something thousand in taxes is not lost, you recouped it. Yes, you did, from me and other homeowners who are struggling to pay their mortgage, who are struggling to pay their taxes and our other bills and keep a roof over our heads. Since I've owned my home, my tax bill year after year has gone up, and I don't understand that. In the beginning, we were told, well, yeah, we need all this new development because it'll help with ratables. And then when we were told, when the taxes didn't go down. Well, the ratables, we haven't seen the ratables yet because they haven't come online, you know, in the future. And then we gave away our MUA, and we said, well, that's gonna save us $1 million, and it's gonna save taxes. And then, you know, it was like one little scheme after another, and yet my taxes go up. So what I would love an answer sometime in the future is, if your tax base has grown significantly, which it has, then why hasn't my taxes at least stabilized? My conclusion would be, if I'm making $500 and my bills are $600, I'm spending more. And I think that's what's happening here, where other municipalities have done significant cost-saving measures. I haven't seen Wisconsin do it. You've done a little nip and a little nip here, but nothing significant. You know, at the last council meeting, you discussed, or 2 council meetings ago, you discussed not hiring additional police because the budget couldn't handle it. And then you went on to spend almost $500,000 for dredging. I mean, you give with one hand and, you know, you take with the other. This council actually voted on a resolution for a hiring freeze, and in the same meeting later that evening, hired 3 people. I don't understand the logic. It's, you know, I mean, sometimes I feel like this is like a reality show sometimes. And I respect every one of you, and I know it's not an easy job. I really do. And I know it's hard to stand here month after month and hear criticism. But I just think that maybe you should be more open and receptive to some of the suggestions by the public, regardless of what party they belong to. Thank you.
Kate?
Stephen George, 359 Fifth Avenue. May I suggest, to help the people out on Sterling Avenue, why don't you let the people park on Sundays in the school parking lot when it's completed, and then they can shuttle their parishioners down to the church, and you don't have to worry about everybody blocking the street or double parking or not giving these people a chance to find a space. So, you know, it's the closest
That's a good idea.
public parking lot there, and you know, just to, and I think it's a good thing that the church is still operating. You know, it didn't close down after the Presbyterian, you know, church went down.
Good for River Pond.
You know, that might help them out a lot. And in terms of the taxes, yes, that money was spread out, and I don't want to repeat what Mary and Valerie said, but that attitude has to change because it's pervasive on every level. It's pervasive on the national level, on the local level, on the county level. I brought this report out, by the way, to Kathleen Donovan before it was even put out in the papers and stuff, and I have a meeting with her to follow up because the county is going to miss out on revenue also from this borough, and that's something you have to take into consideration here. And I don't want it to come back on our backs again, because what happens here is with all these schemes and all these plans and all these bonding outs, it keeps rolling, but it all comes back to us. And it's just so much stuff that we can't even keep up with it anymore. You know, it's like, you know, you put money in a cookie jar and you take a little out and you say you're going to put it back, but it never quite gets back as much as it should, and it just keeps multiplying. And we're left holding the bag on it. And you know, again, I was a little upset with what Mr. Henry said last time about, you know, it was a little condescending because these people do show up constantly and they really do care. And what we get in response is, don't you like Edgewater? Don't you like Edgewater? Well, yeah, we love Edgewater. I told you outside, I love my son, but I'm on him every single day because I want his grades up. I want him to be a good citizen. I want him to be a good person. I know he's not perfect. I know he makes mistakes every single day, but you know. But you have to work at it, and then you have to work at a good community also. And that's why people show up and people put their 2 cents in. It's not self-serving. Most of these people are sticking up for other people's, you know, quality of life, not just their own. Now, I Oprah'd our code officers, you know, duties through, you know, whatever she does and during the daytime. Out of 22 possible working days, she issued 22 warnings. She got started issuing summonses. Warnings mean nothing. They don't produce revenue, and quite frankly, if they don't produce revenue, what do we need her for? As I said before, previous code officers, Iris Melendez, Aileen Carroll, Delia Rambone, wore a uniform, walked the streets, staggered their schedules, and produced revenue, and that's a good thing. She can't just drive around in a car and zip by. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. As for the traffic, I was gonna text you 2 times when I was on Fort Lee Hill, because I'm busting my chops going from job to job. And I said, nah, forget it, I'm not gonna bother. But during the Christmas holidays, I don't believe these are essential jobs. Are these emergency jobs? No, I've heard they're non-emergency. Anyway, 2 on River Road, Route 5 closed, and prior to that, we had Route 5 closed, and Oxon Hill, and another job, and we've had this now for over half a year. You have to coordinate. Someone has to be in charge of that. I don't know whose responsibility that is ultimately. Mr. Franz, I think you should do something when, you know, everybody bombards us at once. It's impossible to get through town. Now, quite frankly, I'll be a little self-serving. I have a type 1 diabetic in my house and an asthmatic. God forbid something happens. Not to mention our proximity to New York City and the fact that we might have to evacuate one day. I don't know how we're going to do it because it's constantly shut down on all ends. Speaking of which, we had the public service job for months and months and months. They need to come now and pave the road because the winter's coming. And then when the plows go down the road and they hit those bumps, we're going to ruin our plows, and then we're going to have more expenses replacing equipment because public service has to fulfill their obligation and finish that job. I don't care if they don't do both sides. Let's get the potholes fixed. Now, now in terms of the ball field, I know you're going to have answers next month, but I know when I was walking there in the early fall, I saw you on the track several times, and there were truckloads of dirt coming in that day. Now, where were those trucks coming from? And what was that dirt about? And was it tested before it was brought into the ball field? Because now all of a sudden we have a disaster capitalism situation where, oh my God, we have to shut down the ball field. It's labeled an emergency, so naturally we don't have to go through the bidding process, and the price of this is going to go through the roof. It's going to go from 6 to 60 real fast. I can feel it in my bones because that's what disaster capitalism is, and that's how the country's being run, and now I see it as a microcosm down here, and we really need to put the reins on this immediately because one person says you can eat the dirt, Mr. Councilman Vidal is telling his neighbors that there's nothing to worry about, and then you got people that are claiming their children have headaches and they're going to file lawsuits. So the reins have to come down very quickly on this before it goes way out of control. I'm just curious about the cost of the swimming pool, $65,000. Why so much? And I know, as Valerie said, a lot of people are curious about that. They don't come down here. They expect their neighbors to do their dirty work for them because they don't want to look like the bad guy. They don't want to look like the complainer. They just want to put your sign on their lawn and let it all wash over, and then everybody's happy. But people want to know why $65,000 for the kiddie pool. Kidding.
Well, I know it needs to be updated for handicap accessibility by this year.
March,
Okay.
yeah, March
March.
of 2012.
The state
2012, but as far as the number, I don't know that.
Is the price going to go up because I think one of the parents pointed out that the price has risen about 3 times since they first bought badges to go, and that's a burden for people in this economy. That's a burden. But I do want to get back to the taxes because that original 2006 revow, which wasn't completed, till 2000, when was it completed? At the end of 2007, by 2007? At that time, the bubble was already bursting. And prior to Lehman, Merrill Lynch went down, and they said they were too big to fail. And anyone who was paying attention to any real estate market or any stock market could have seen that coming. But Ms. Rose and Ms. Fine insisted on that revow, and by the time it was completed, excuse me, this is public time, you can speak later. By the time it was completed, I'm sorry, Mr. Monty.
It's 5 minutes is up.
Well, I'm sorry about that too, and I may suggest that maybe you're here to serve us. You're here to serve us. You're a public servant. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Sit down, everybody.
I'm sorry. How dare he? How dare he?
Your 5 minutes is up.
I
That's what
don't care. Other people went over their 5 minutes.
You're gonna yell, so that's gonna.
No, I'm
scare
not
us?
yelling.
He's not
You
running
should
the
know
meeting,
that.
he's not the chairman.
Excuse me, Mr. Henry.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
how dare
I'm
he?
sorry.
Other people had extra time.
I'm sorry.
How
You're
dare
public
he.
servants. Don't tell me to sit down. How dare you after all these years? Really? Really?
Yeah, how dare you?
Honestly. I pay attention, please, okay? The taxes, you have to go after this. You have to make good on this. We cannot, everyone is taking from all parts. I suggest you go to the Attorney General's office and figure out what's going on. Because before it was all lip service and damage control.
I'm sorry you had to endure that.
It's okay. I can
Anyone else
handle
wish to
it.
be heard?
Yeah, go call Brian.
Hearing none, I